Oh, I use open space quite a lot in my work, and I've never been to one of the international conferences. I've been to the national WOSonOS a couple of years ago here. Um, some of the people who are here I know quite well by seeing their postings on the OS list. So as it was here, and Brian was very good at putting the information around pretty early, I just felt like it was an opportunity not to be missed. So here I am.
What attracted you to open space in the first place?
I suppose my first exposure to open space attracted me. The first time I came across it was with a guy called Eddie Palmer, who a lot of people here know. And Eddie and I were at a very large meeting, about 120 people, waiting for a speaker to turn up. And the speaker phoned on her mobile phone. This is 10 years ago. So I guess she was phoning on a brick. And she said, "I'm stuck in a traffic jam. It's going to be at least an hour before I arrive. Carry on without me." And Eddie jumped up and said, "Let's open space it." So he stood up and he explained open space to the people who were there, and 60 people left, and the other 60 people had an incredible time, and I was hooked. It was like, oh, what an imaginative, creative way of spending time without having to predetermine what's going to happen.
And so you've then applied it in your business.
Yep, in communities, in business meetings, and also in as part of work I do in the construction industry to start up complex projects.
It must have been difficult to try and move it into the industry like the construction industry, which is, I would have thought, was pretty stitched up with regulations and rules. And
Yes, it's interesting because that's work I do in the UK. I've been trying to get into the construction industry here, and that's proving more difficult. But the interesting thing is, we were having a conversation yesterday about coaching, and one of the things that became clear was that coaching is open space or opening space, and the work I do in the construction industry came entirely through coach and assignment, which gradually evolved into larger group space opening until we got to the notion of introducing the whole system to the open space, and that's what we do. So yeah, it's very exciting getting in there.
I'm sort of, as you know, new to open space, but interested and intrigued and learning. But until this weekend, I had quite a deal of difficulty describing what open space was. How would you describe, if you had to describe to someone who just was a potentially interested person, what would you say?
I think that the description that you just described it as she was talking about the Quaker meeting, but the idea of it's communion. It's it's a way for people's hearts to connect without having to create any structures and rules. And that's not to say that there aren't structures and rules. Open space is highly structured, but it's also a way of just allowing people to be who they are, who they choose to be, and to be where they want to be. So I don't know how to describe it adequately either, because it is always very hard to talk to new clients about this strange amorphous thing that is open space.
Which achieves many interesting,
Yes,
unexpected things.
unexpected, and always the thing that amazes me is that it doesn't matter how long or how short an open space event is, the the energy of the group is always high towards the end. And I noticed this morning that the separation process has already begun. People are taking photographs, they're talking about people already leaving and so on. So now is the moment when it's really important to stay really present with what's happening. And with events where I work with people who are not familiar with open space, it's really interesting to note how, when that moment begins, when people start to begin the separation an hour or an hour and a half before the actual event ends, and holding them inside the space or containing the space so they can remain there is an interesting idea.
And then there's a formal closure of the space.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, I guess, necessary to translate back into the real world, as it were.
Yeah, I think it does two things. I think it both affirms and acknowledges who we are and where we've been together, and I think it also marks the boundary. It's like the boundary rope on a cricket ground. It's not solid and firm. It's a flexible rope in that analogy, and you can move it around, but it's definitely there, and it definitely has a meaning. And I think the closing circle is really, really important.